I'm a food critic for the New York Times. I have power. The kind of power that can make a restaurant an overnight success or drive it into bankruptcy with a few carefully chosen words. I've reviewed hundreds of establishments over 15 years. I pride myself on being fair, objective, honest. 3 months ago, I walked into a new restaurant in the West Village called Bogart's Table. The food was mediocre. The service was slow. I wrote what I always write, the truth, 2 stars out of 5. The review published, the restaurant's reservations dropped by 80%. I moved on to the next assignment. Then I received a letter from the chef's wife. She told me her husband was dying, that opening the restaurant was his final dream before he lost the ability to hold a knife, and my review had destroyed that dream. And then I saw his photo. I recognized him immediately, my high school bully, the person who made 3 years of my adolescence a living hell. I had to decide. Did the boy who tormented me 28 years ago deserve compassion from the man who had the power to destroy his dying dream? Before we dive in, have you ever had to choose between justified anger and compassion? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories about responsibility and confronting who we were versus who we've become, please subscribe so you don't miss our next one. Now let me tell you about Jeffrey Bogart and how a 2-star review became something much more complicated than I ever intended. I've been a food critic for the New York Times for 15 years. People think being a food critic is glamorous. Free meals, fancy restaurants, expense accounts, they're not entirely wrong. But what they don't understand is the weight of it, the responsibility. Every review I write affects real people, chefs who've poured their life savings into a restaurant, servers who depend on tips, families who depend on paychecks. A good review can make a career. A bad review can end one. I don't take that lightly. I never have. I've built my reputation on being fair, thorough. I visit restaurants anonymously. I pay cash. I order extensively. Appetizers, entrees, desserts. I return multiple times if I'm unsure about my assessment. And when I write the truth. Not the truth I want. The truth I tasted. At least, that's what I tell myself. Bogart's Table opened in the West Village in early September. New American cuisine. Chef-owner Jeffrey Bogart. The press release promised elevated comfort food with soul. My editor, Gavin Fletcher, assigned it to me in late October. New place, getting some buzz, go check it out. I made a reservation under a fake name, something I always do. Showed up on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Alone. Unremarkable clothes. Nothing that would identify me as press. The restaurant was small, maybe 30 seats, exposed brick, Edison bulbs, the kind of aesthetic that's trendy right now. Industrial but warm. I was seated quickly. The server was friendly but scattered. Took 15 minutes to bring water. I ordered the tasting menu. 6 courses. $95. The food came slowly, very slowly. 30 minutes between some courses. The first course, butternut squash soup, was good, rich, well-seasoned, but it arrived lukewarm. The second course, seared scallops, was overcooked, rubbery. The third course, short rib, was underseasoned. The meat itself was tender, but the accompanying vegetables were mushy. The fourth course, duck breast, was the best of the evening, cooked perfectly, but the sauce was too sweet, overwhelming the meat. Dessert, chocolate tart, was forgettable. I took mental notes throughout. Observed everything. The pacing, the plating, the technique, the ambition versus the execution. By the end of the evening, my assessment was clear. Ambitious, but flawed. The chef had ideas but lacked the skill, or perhaps the team, to execute them consistently. I paid. Tipped 20%. Left. Back at my apartment, I sat down to write. Writing reviews is both easy and difficult. Easy because I know what I tasted. Difficult because I know what my words will do. But my job isn't to protect feelings. It's to inform readers, to tell them whether a restaurant is worth their time and money. I started typing Bogart's Table, the newly opened West Village establishment from chef Jeffrey Bogart, promises elevated American comfort food, but delivers inconsistency at nearly every turn. Despite an inviting atmosphere and ambitious menu, execution falls frustratingly short. The butternut squash soup, rich and well-balanced in flavor, arrived barely above room temperature, suggesting kitchen timing issues. The seared scallops, a dish that demands precision, were overcooked to the point of rubberiness. The short rib, while tender, suffered from underseasoning and accompaniments that lacked textural contrast. Only the duck breast showed promise, with proper cooking technique, though even this was undermined by an overly sweet sauce that dominated rather than complemented. Service, while friendly, was painfully slow. 30-minute gaps between courses tested patience. Chef Bogart clearly has ambition. What he lacks is the consistency and technical execution required to compete in New York's demanding dining scene. Until these fundamentals improve, Bogart's Table remains a disappointment. 2 stars. I read it over, edited for clarity, made sure every criticism was specific and justified. Then I sent it to Gavin. He approved it the next morning. Fair assessment, publishing Friday. The review went live at 6 a.m. on Friday, October 18th. By noon, I'd moved on to planning my next assignment. That's how it works. You write, you publish, you move forward. I didn't think about Bogart's Table again, until the letter arrived. The envelope was hand-delivered to the Times offices the following Tuesday. Gavin dropped it on my desk during our afternoon meeting. Angry restaurateur's spouse. Thought you'd want to see it. I get these occasionally, usually from owners who think I was unfair. Sometimes they have valid points. A dish I ordered on an off night, a server who was new. Mostly they're just venting. I opened the envelope. The handwriting was shaky, but legible. Mr. Cole, I am Phoebe Bogart, wife of Chef Jeffrey Bogart. Your review has destroyed our restaurant. I understand that criticism is part of this business. I understand you have a job to do. But you don't know the whole story. Jeffrey has ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. He was diagnosed 18 months ago. The disease is progressive and terminal. Every day, Jeffrey loses a little more control over his muscles. His hands shake. His grip weakens. In 6 months, maybe less, he won't be able to hold a knife, won't be able to plate a dish, won't be able to cook. We opened Bogart's Table knowing we had limited time. We'd saved for 10 years, poured everything we had into this restaurant. It was Jeffrey's dream, the one thing he wanted to accomplish while he still could, while he could still hold a spatula, while he could still stand at a stove. Your review has destroyed that dream. Since Friday, our reservations have dropped by 80%. We're losing money every day. We're going to have to close. Jeffrey is going to lose the ability to cook. That's inevitable. The ALS will take that from him, no matter what. But because of your review, he's going to lose his restaurant before that happens. He's going to watch his dream die before his body does. I hope that makes you feel powerful. Phoebe Bogart. I read it 3 times. ALS. Dying. 6 months. My first thought, and I'm not proud of this, was defensive. How was I supposed to know? My job is to review food, not investigate the personal circumstances of every chef. My second thought was, does it matter? Would I have written a different review if I'd known? Should I have? I sat at my desk for 20 minutes, staring at the letter. Then I did something I rarely do. I Googled the chef. Jeffrey Bogart Chef New York brought up the restaurant's website immediately. I clicked through to the About page. There was a photo, Chef Jeffrey Bogart in his whites, standing in the kitchen, holding a plated dish, smiling. I stared at the face. Something about it was familiar. I clicked to enlarge the photo, and my blood ran cold. I knew that face. Not from the restaurant, from 28 years ago. Jeffrey Bogart. Edison High School, New Jersey. Class of 1997. Jeffrey Bogart, star of the football team. Jeffrey Bogart, who'd called me Ronald the Fetus for 3 years straight. Jeffrey Bogart, who'd shoved me into lockers every chance he got. Jeffrey Bogart, who once pantsed me in front of the entire cafeteria during lunch, leaving me standing there in my underwear while 200 students laughed. Jeffrey Bogart, who made 9th, 10th, and 11th grade a living nightmare. Jeffrey Bogart, my high school bully. The restaurant I'd just destroyed belonged to the person who'd tormented me for years. I closed my laptop and sat in stunned silence. For the next 3 days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Jeffrey Bogart was dying, and I'd written a review that might close his restaurant before his disease took away his ability to cook. Part of me felt vindicated. Poetic justice. The bully finally getting what he deserved. But another part, a part I didn't want to acknowledge, felt sick. Because here's the thing, I pride myself on objectivity, on fairness, on reviewing the food, not the person. But had I been objective? I pulled up my notes from that dinner, read them carefully. Butternut squash soup, good flavor, arrived lukewarm, seared scallops, overcooked, rubbery short rib, underseasoned, vegetables mushy duck breast, best dish, but sauce too sweet. Service, slow, 30 min between courses. Had those assessments been fair? Or had I, subconsciously without even realizing it, recognized Jeffrey? Had some buried part of my brain seen his name on the menu, connected it to the boy who'd tortured me and made me harsher than I should have been? The soup was lukewarm, but was it inedibly so, or just slightly less hot than ideal? The scallops were overcooked, but were they rubbery, or just firm? The short rib was underseasoned, but was it bland, or subtly seasoned? The more I thought about it, the more uncertain I became. Had I been fair, or had I unconsciously used my power as a critic to punish Jeffrey Bogart for what he'd done to me 28 years ago? The thought made me feel sick. On Thursday, 6 days after my review published, I did something I'd only done a few times in 15 years of food criticism. I went back to the restaurant. Not as a critic, not officially, just to see. I made a reservation under a different fake name. Showed up alone at 7 p.m. The dining room was nearly empty. Maybe 6 tables occupied in a space meant for 30. A direct result of my review. The hostess seated me quickly, too quickly, desperate for any customer. I ordered the full tasting menu again. Same 6 courses. This time I ate differently, not with the critical eye of a reviewer, but with genuine attention, trying to taste what was actually there, not what I expected to find. The butternut squash soup arrived. Warm, not piping hot, but warm enough. I tasted it carefully. It was good, really good, rich, layered, complex. The scallops came next. I cut into one. It was fine, maybe slightly overcooked, but not rubbery. The short rib was tender, flavorful. The vegetables were soft, but was that mushiness or deliberate tenderness? The duck breast was excellent. The sauce was sweet, but was it too sweet? Or was that my preference, not an objective flaw? By the end of the meal, I had to admit something uncomfortable. The food was better than I'd given it credit for. Not perfect, but good, solid, made with care. My review had been harsh, maybe too harsh. Maybe colored by bias I didn't even know I had. When I finished eating, I did something I'd never done in my entire career as a critic. I asked to speak to the chef. The server looked surprised. "You want to speak to Chef Bogart?" "Yes, please." "Let me check if he's available." She disappeared into the kitchen. 2 minutes later, Jeffrey Bogart emerged. He'd aged since high school, obviously. We both had. But he was thinner than in the website photo, his face gaunt. His right hand trembled slightly as he steadied himself against a table. The disease was already visible. When he saw me, his expression shifted from polite curiosity to recognition to something harder. Ronald Cole. "Jeffrey, let me guess, you came back to finish the job? 1 2-star review wasn't enough? Can we talk? I don't think we have anything to say to each other. 5 minutes, please. Jeffrey looked around the empty dining room, a room that should have been full on a Thursday night. Fine. 5 minutes. Then I want you to leave. He sat down across from me, moving carefully, his right hand shaking as he gripped the table. We stared at each other for a long moment. 2 45-year-old men, but all I could see was the 16-year-old who'd made my life hell. "I read your wife's letter," I said finally. "Which letter? Did she write you?" "I know you have ALS. I'm sorry." "Are you? Or are you just here to cover your ass because someone found out you destroyed a dying man's restaurant?" "Both, probably. But Jeffrey, I need to ask you something. Do you remember me?" He frowned. "Should I?" "Edison High, class of '97. We were in the same grade." I watched recognition slowly dawn on his face. His eyes widened. His already pale face went whiter. "Oh my God, Ronald Cole, you were—" "The fat kid. Yeah, the one you tortured for 3 years. Jesus Christ." He put his face in his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "When I saw your name on the byline, I didn't make the connection. I didn't realize—" "Neither did I, not consciously. But Jeffrey, I think maybe I recognized your name, subconsciously, and I think that might have made me harsher than I should have been." He stared at me. "So you came here to what? Apologize?" "I came here to eat your food again, objectively, without whatever bias I might have had the first time. And Jeffrey, it's good. It's really good. Better than I said it was. Why are you telling me this? Because I have power that I might have misused. Because—" I took a breath. "Because what you did to me in high school affected me for years, decades. And maybe without even knowing it, I used my position to hurt you back." Jeffrey's hands were shaking now, not just from the ALS. "I was a terrible person in high school." "Yes, you were." "I'm sorry." His voice broke. "I know that doesn't change anything. But Ronald, I'm so fucking sorry. I was miserable. My dad was a drunk who hit me. My mom pretended everything was fine. I was angry all the time. And I took it out on you because you were an easy target, because hurting you made me feel powerful when I felt powerless everywhere else. Do you think about it? What you did to me? Not as often as I should have. But yeah, sometimes, especially after my daughter was born. I think about what I'd do if someone treated her the way I treated you. And I'm ashamed." I nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that. Does it help? The apology?" "A little. Not as much as I wish it did, but a little." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Jeffrey held up his right hand. It was trembling visibly. "You see this? 6 months ago this hand was steady. I could dice an onion in 30 seconds. I could hold a paring knife and do precision work. Now some days I can barely grip a pan handle. I'm sorry. The disease is going to take everything. My ability to walk, to eat, to breathe. But you know what it's taking first? The thing I love most. Cooking. In a few months I won't be able to hold a knife. Won't be able to stand at a stove for hours. Won't be able to do the one thing that's defined who I am since I was 20 years old." He looked around the empty restaurant. "This place was supposed to be my last thing, the thing I built before my body stopped working. And now we're losing money every day. We'll have to close in a few weeks, maybe a month. Jeffrey, my review was unfair. I'm going to write a second one." He laughed bitterly. "A second review? You think that'll fix this? The damage is done, Ronald." "Maybe, but I have to try. Because you're right. My review was colored by something I didn't even know I was carrying, and that's not fair. Not to you. Not to your wife. Not to the food." "Why do you care? I tortured you. You have every reason to want to see me fail." "Maybe. But Jeffrey, as much as I hate what you did to me 28 years ago, I don't want to be the reason your last dream dies." I went home that night and stared at my computer for 3 hours. Writing the second review was the hardest thing I'd done in my career. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I had to admit I'd been wrong, that I'd let bias, unconscious, unintentional, but real, affect my judgment. Critics don't like admitting we're wrong. It undermines our authority, our credibility. But I'd built my career on honesty. And the honest truth was, I'd been unfair. I started typing. 3 weeks ago, I reviewed Bogart's table and gave it 2 stars. After reflection and a return visit, I believe that review was unjust. Not because the food was perfect, it wasn't. Not because service was flawless, it wasn't. But because I failed in my primary responsibility as a critic, objectivity. Without realizing it, I allowed personal history I wasn't even consciously aware of, to color my judgment. I was harsher than I should have been, more critical of minor flaws, less generous with the things the restaurant did well. On my return visit, I tasted what I should have tasted the first time. Honest, heartfelt cooking. Chef Jeffrey Bogart's food isn't technically perfect, but it doesn't need to be. What it has is something more valuable. Soul. The butternut squash soup is rich and complex. The duck breast shows real skill. Even the dishes that stumble, the scallops, the short rib, are made with care and ambition. Is Bogart's table a Michelin-starred destination? No, but it's a neighborhood restaurant making good food with heart, and that deserves recognition. 4 stars. I encourage New Yorkers to visit, and I encourage my fellow critics to remember, we wield enormous power. We have a responsibility to examine not just the food on the plate, but our own biases. To ask ourselves, am I being fair? Or am I letting something invisible affect my judgment? I failed that test with Bogart's table. I'm correcting that failure now. I sent it to Gavin at midnight. He called me 15 minutes later. Ronald, are you sure about this? Admitting you were biased? That's going to raise questions about all your other reviews. I know, but it's the truth. This could damage your reputation. My reputation should be damaged if I'm not being fair. Gavin was quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll publish it tomorrow morning. Thank you. The second review went live at 6 a.m. on Friday, November 8th. The response was immediate and divided. Some readers praised the honesty. Finally, a critic admitting they're human. Others were furious. How can we trust any of your reviews now? Some called for me to be fired. Biased critics have no place at the Times. I didn't respond to any of it. I just waited. By noon, Bogart's table had started getting calls. By evening, they were fully booked for the next 2 weeks. Phoebe called the Times offices that afternoon. Left a message. Thank you. I didn't visit the restaurant again for a month. I wanted to give Jeffrey space, to let the attention die down. But in mid-December, I walked past Bogart's table on my way to another assignment. The dining room was packed, every table full, the bar crowded. Through the kitchen window, I could see Jeffrey, moving slowly but deliberately, his hands shaking as he plated a dish. A younger chef, his sous chef probably, helping him with the precision work. But Jeffrey was there, cooking, living his dream. I didn't go in, didn't want to disrupt, just watched for a moment. Then I kept walking. In January, I got another letter. This one from Jeffrey, handwritten, the letter shaky but legible. Ronald, thank you for the second review. You didn't have to do that. You could have let your first review stand. You could have justified it. The food wasn't perfect. The service was slow. You weren't technically wrong. But you came back. You admitted bias. You used your platform to correct an injustice. The restaurant is thriving now. We're booked solid most nights. We're making money. We're going to survive. More importantly, I'm cooking every day, for as long as my hands will let me. And that's everything. I know my apology for high school doesn't erase what I did. I know you probably still carry that pain. I'm sorry I put it there. But I want you to know, you're a better man than I was, than I am. You could have destroyed me and felt justified. Instead, you chose fairness, compassion. Thank you. Jeffrey. I didn't respond. Didn't know what to say. But 3 weeks later, I went back to Bogart's table. Not to review, not to observe, just to eat. I made a reservation under my real name this time. When I arrived, Phoebe seated me personally. "Thank you for coming. How is he?" "Declining, slowly, but he's still cooking. Every day." "Good." Midway through my meal, Jeffrey emerged from the kitchen, walking with a cane now, his right hand almost useless, hanging at his side, but his left hand still worked. He came to my table, sat down carefully. "Ronald? Jeffrey? Thank you for coming. The food is excellent. I have maybe 2 months before I can't do this anymore. The ALS is progressing. Soon I won't be able to stand for long periods, won't be able to grip anything. I'm sorry. I've had 4 good months. 4 months of doing what I love. Because of you. Because you came back. Because you were fair when you didn't have to be. I should have been fair the first time. You're human. We all have biases. The difference is you recognized yours and fixed it. That's rare, especially for someone with power." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Jeffrey said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you forgive me for high school?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Part of me does. Part of me understands you were a kid dealing with your own trauma. But part of me still carries what you did, still flinches when I think about it. Forgiveness isn't a switch I can flip." "That's fair." "But Jeffrey, I don't hate you. Not anymore. I did for a long time. Maybe I still did 3 months ago without realizing it. But now? I see a person who's changed, who's using his last months to do something beautiful, and I respect that. That's more than I deserve. Probably, but it's what I've got." Jeffrey smiled. "I'll take it." Jeffrey Bogart died on March 14th. The ALS progressed faster than expected. By February, he couldn't cook anymore, couldn't hold utensils, could barely walk. He spent his last month at home with Phoebe and their daughter. Bogart's table stayed open. Phoebe promoted the sous chef to head chef. The food wasn't quite the same. No one cooks exactly like someone else. But it was good. The restaurant survived. I went to Jeffrey's funeral, sat in the back, listened to people talk about him. His daughter spoke. She was 12. "My dad loved us, and he loved cooking, and he was brave. He knew he was dying, and he didn't give up. He opened a restaurant. He cooked every day until he couldn't anymore. He fought." Phoebe spoke. "Jeffrey made mistakes, hurt people. He'd be the first to admit that. But he spent his adult life trying to be better, trying to make amends, and in the end, he died doing what he loved. That's all anyone can ask for." After the service, Phoebe found me. "Thank you for coming. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you for the second review. It gave Jeffrey 4 months of joy, 4 months of purpose. That was a gift." "Did he ever tell you about high school?" "He did. He said he used to bully you. He was ashamed of it. He should have been. He was, for years. Ronald, Jeffrey changed. He really did. He wasn't the boy who hurt you." "I know. I saw that. In the end. Do you forgive him?" I thought about it. "I'm working on it. It's complicated." "It is. But for what it's worth, he forgave himself, finally, in those last months. He made peace with who he'd been, and I think part of that was because you gave him the chance to see himself as more than his worst moments." 6 months have passed since Jeffrey died. Bogart's table is still open, still thriving. Phoebe runs it now, with the sous chef handling the kitchen. I haven't reviewed it again? Won't. It would feel exploitative. But I drive past sometimes, see the dining room full, see people eating, laughing, enjoying food that Jeffrey Bogart created, or at least inspired. My editor asked me to write a follow-up piece. The critic who admitted bias. Where are you now? I declined. This story isn't about me. Jeffrey Bogart was my high school bully, and Jeffrey Bogart was a dying man who deserved a fair chance at his final dream. I'm glad I gave him that chance, even if it took me 2 tries to get it right. Because in the end, we're all more than our worst moments. We're also our best moments, our growth, our attempts to be better. Jeffrey spent his last months cooking, creating, feeding people, making them happy. That's not nothing. That's not redemption for what he did when he was 16, but it's something. And something is enough. Have you ever had to choose between justified anger and compassion? Or discovered that someone from your past changed in ways you never expected? Share your story in the comments below. If this story about power, responsibility, forgiveness, and confronting who we were versus who we've become touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more meaningful stories every day. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss our next inspiring tale. Thanks for watching.